Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass. Thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I wanted to start this video off by showing you from the 18th of July through the 22nd of July, where we had severe weather reports across the country. Over 1,200 reports in total, and some of them were quite tragic. This is the grouping of supercell thunderstorms that blew up on Thursday that caused all the problems in parts of Iowa, including Pella and Marshalltown and nearby communities, where tornadoes erupted and did quite a bit of damage. We also had the duck boat incident that happened on that same day, where the strong winds causing that boat to capsize. Storm Prediction Center actually did a very good job over the last 5 days at kind of pinpointing down these regions, and of course we talked about them in our last update, but certainly a lot of severe wind reports through the parts of the southeastern part of the Corn Belt, getting over to the southeastern United States. And so this has just been an extremely active week in terms of severe weather. Thankfully, things will be calming down moving forward through a lot of the Corn Belt. But as I always do, I want to show you a map. We look at it all the time, right? It's the last 30 days of precipitation expressed as a percent of normal. And you're pretty comfortable with my color bars now. I show this one a lot. So this is valid through early Sunday morning. Now, when we look at this, remember, when we talk about how June finished and we got in July, remember, it was very wet across a big section of the Corn Belt. But there have been a few regions that over the last 30 days have really started to see some stress, or are kind of seeing a continuation of stress they've seen so far this year. I want to focus specifically on parts of Indiana. I want to talk about northern Missouri, and I'm going to get over here to Sioux Falls as well. Pick out these three regions. And see, what I want to do is I'm going to show you their individual precipitation graphs. I've done a lot of research over the last 10 years trying to understand what features in all of the different weather variables we watch really control yield. And it's not going to be a surprise to tell you that not only does deficit in precipitation, like look at the deficit in precipitation Indianapolis has built up since May 1st, several inches, but it's these stretches where we just go long time periods without precipitation. At one point, Indianapolis was having its driest year on record from May 1st moving forward. That was beating 2012 at one point, but it had since had a couple of rainfall events that moved it forward. But overall, relatively dry. Look at northern Missouri. Northern Missouri is right now having its second driest summer on record. And for some folks, I'm sure it is the driest. We're in Trenton, which is right in this area, right in through here. And in that area, we've got a several inch deficit in precipitation, and we're nearly matched our driest year. But just go a little bit north and west of there, Sioux Falls, surplus of precipitation, lots of big rain events when we need them. And overall, when you kind of paint a picture for the whole of the northern plains, we've seen more regions wetter than we have drier. And when we kind of look at all of this, I kind of see a bit of a fragmented garden spot, but overall I'd say it's relatively large given the precipitation patterns we've seen. If we add that to temperatures, remember when we think about where the Corn Belt really is the most productive ground, we're kind of talking about this area right in through here, right? I probably shouldn't have lopped off too much of Wisconsin there in southern Michigan, but this is it, this area right in through here. And while we have seen some pretty decent temperature stresses, in parts of northern Missouri, elsewhere on the Corn Belt, not so much here in the month of July. This certainly doesn't look anything like it did in 2012. So we got to keep that always in the back of our mind as we're looking at what recently happened and what we're going to be seeing in the forecast. Now, the flow of the atmosphere has just been magnificent to watch as a meteorologist. A deep plunging trough here over the eastern part of the country. And as that trough digs deep, the upper levels are cold, the surface air is warm, and it's actually got plenty of moisture. And you're going to watch storms just erupt in that destabilized atmosphere right in through this area. See it? Watch right into here. There they go. This is Sunday. See all the storms blowing up here? And this brought a lot of hit or miss showers and thunderstorms to the eastern Corn Belt. We then had this feature. Let me pause this and take you one step back. We're going to have to watch the development of this low moving through parts of Canada because the front that it draped through here on Sunday, well, watch, it blew up these storms right into this area, and that front's going to be moving toward the Corn Belt, well, really the central and eastern Corn Belt over the coming days. But this is our flow pattern moving forward. Ridge out west, deep trough over the east, and it's going to stick around like that for quite some time. So this is our setup. Now, the good news is with the circulation around that upper level low, we did bring quite a bit of scattered showers and thunderstorms, especially to those drier fields in Indiana. Look at this. This is Sunday. See the hit or miss nature? It would rain and then it would stop. It would rain, then it would stop. You would see these off and on intense bands of showers and thunderstorms. And as you saw a few moments ago, the end of them came right down into parts of Kentucky and Tennessee and just dumped an enormous amount of rain on the kind of the eastern two-thirds of both of those states. And meanwhile, we still had our showers and storms in the central plains and then the northern plains as well. So this is what things look like going into the forecast. And this is our pattern through this next week, okay? We've been talking about this now for quite some time. We are going to have multiple cold fronts moving through the Corn Belt going toward the southeast in the coming days, hence the cooler than average weather. Wetter conditions are going to be sprawled right across the higher plains here in the northern plains, as you can see over here on this figure. And then we're going to have heat. The heat continues in Texas and builds all the way up to the Pacific Northwest, because overall we're going to be favoring a ridge in that location and general troughing over the eastern part of the country. Now the precipitation patterns are interesting. Great support of tropical moisture, not tropical systems, but a tropical moisture transport coming up the east coast of the United States. But look at this. Much of the Corn Belt over the next 7 days is going to be relatively dry. It may not be until next weekend that we see a system coming out of parts of Kansas through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana that could be bringing some precipitation. But that's not reflected in this map because this map is only valid through early next Sunday morning. Texas continues to stay dry. The Pacific Northwest, where there is substantial fire threat right now, continues to stay dry. So let's figure this out and then push us out to its second week forecast. I've got 4 panels, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And the things we're going to be seeing here is we're going to have several low pressure systems kind of cross the Canadian prairies, getting over into Canadian Maritimes in the northeastern part of Canada. And as each one comes through, they keep bringing through cold fronts in the Corn Belt, hence the cooler than average weather. But in the southeast, we have a system that's kind of stalled out here. And all along the periphery of that system, especially where we're getting the really warm air kind of advecting here out of the western Atlantic, it's going to be very, very wet up the east coast. It won't be until Thursday until some substantially drier air kind of plunges through. But with the kind of the progression of each one of these fronts, and the black arrow showing you the flow of the atmosphere, well, watch this animation over here. Here's 10 days of temperature anomalies every 6 hours. And you know what the cooler colors mean? You know what the warmer colors mean? You can see here that we are going to be favoring cooler than average weather at least through the very start of the month of August, while the Pacific Northwest gets quite hot. So that's our temperature pattern. That's why almost every forecast you're seeing right now is showing these near average to below average temperatures overall for much of the Corn Belt. Now, precipitation is going to be a little bit more interesting. As I step through this, let's kind of pause it here. As I step through this, what we're going to be watching is by the time we get into, here we go, Monday, there's our front draping through early Monday morning, still some remnants of some showers and storms through parts of Minnesota, South Dakota, getting into Nebraska. What you will see here is that front kind of fizzles with time, and the tail end of it might help initiate some storms on Monday afternoon in parts of Colorado. But the moisture transport into the East Coast is going to be just bringing a lot of rainfall. We may see 1 to maybe 3 or 4 inches spreading from the Carolinas all the way up the East Coast. But overall, the central Corn Belt stays dry. Watch as I animate this out. You see, here's possibly the next front that comes through. This is Thursday. Might be bringing the chances of showers and storms through the Corn Belt, but overall, nothing widespread. No big drinks of rain here throughout this week in the central Corn Belt. Now, what I'll have to watch is this. This is next Saturday night getting into early Sunday morning. We are watching the development of a potential low-pressure system, a feature that's going to be coming right through the middle part of the country. And I'm doing a little bit of wish casting here, but I do hope that this system forms. I hope that the upper-level trough that comes through here helps this out and brings that rain right through parts of Missouri and Illinois and Indiana, like you just saw there. We would need this. We really need this. This will help us finish out this crop really well across those states. And Missouri, as you already know, is very, very dry. But if we just look at this in terms of what we're seeing over the next 7 days, we see that overall, much of the central part of the Corn Belt will be seeing drier than average conditions, okay? So drier than average conditions. Big moisture transport up the East Coast, very, very wet conditions there. We've talked about that. The heat stays in Texas, goes right through the Southwest up into the Pacific Northwest, and it's going to be dry there as well. So the continuation of fire threat, we're already seeing fires that have broken out on the Oregon and California border. Here you can see some of the smoke from those fires. The fire threat stays high. And where we might see the best chances for showers and thunderstorms is going to be in the central plains and the higher plains over into Colorado and parts of Wyoming. Okay, so this is kind of the overall setup, at least through the next 7 days. Hot in the south, hot in the west, drier conditions across much of the Corn Belt, very, very wet out east. And the good thing is our severe weather threat is much less than you saw over the last 4 to 5 days when we look over the next 7 days. Now, the pattern's important. So let's watch this all evolve here. Ready? As I animate this out, we see what we've been talking about for quite some time now. Ridge building out west, there's your heat. Trough moving repeatedly over the Great Lakes. And this sticks around through much of the end of July, which means we're going to get through the end of July favoring near average to cooler than average weather. Now I'm going to stop it right here on the 31st of July, because what I want you to see is we're looking at a 51-member ensemble. And up through the end of July, this is a 204-hour forecast, we are seeing really good model agreement, which means each one of the ensemble members is all kind of picking up on the same thing, ridge west, trough east. Now, as I continue to play this, watch everything flatten out. Now, this is quite common with our ensemble models. But I just want to tell you something. Once we get into the first week of August, we're going to have to start to watch to see if something can possibly perturb the flow and maybe switch things back up to where we possibly, and this is a big kind of possibly here, maybe build in some ridging back over the Corn Belt. I have no confidence in this forecast at this point, none. But it's just some things I've been seeing out in the longer range operational models. I tend to stick to ensembles for a reason. That's a technique that we use to help eliminate a lot of the variability. And what we can see is that the ensembles still want to keep a ridge over the west and generally troughing over the Corn Belt. I'm going to stick with persistence right now on my forecast, but in each update that I throw out there, be watching to see if we might see some sort of a pattern flip once we get into that first week of August. Nothing right now is supportive of this, and each model run that comes out doesn't give me any clearer picture. I just want to let you know it's something that I got to keep a close eye on because the ensemble members do tend to wash this out a little bit. But it looks like we're going to finish the month of July with very favorable weather conditions and certainly start August the same way. And so with that, I think I'll go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We hope you look forward to Agrible's next ag forecast coming out on Thursday. Head to agrible.com to learn how you can get real-time agronomic and sustainability insights all at the touch of a button. Look forward to talking to you again midweek.